Liberty. Ionescu, truth. Jonquel Jones with a tough bust.
Stewart, little shoulder shake. Oh, what a shot!
Fiebich with the move down the lane. Cloud into the paint. Reverses it in. The New York Liberty are WNBA champions.
Hey Libs fans, and welcome back to Liberty FM. This past weekend, the Liberty had back-to-back games. Friday night against the Phoenix Mercury, where New York won by a score of 89-76, and on Saturday, they battled the LA Sparks but came up just short in the last moments of the game, LA winning by a score of 101-99. One thing is for certain, win or lose, Sabrina Ionescu is on a tear, doing all she can to lead her team to victory. Even with Sabrina's brilliance, the Liberty still have a few areas to clean up so they can pull off a full 40-minute game. François, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. And we finished this month of July with 6 wins and 2 losses at home after this 8-game stretch at the Barclays. And we were really hoping for 7-1 because, even though it was a back-to-back, we felt that after the performance they had against the Phoenix Mercury, one of the toughest opponents that they've had to face so far this season, that they would take care of business against the LA Sparks. But unfortunately this year, and the major question that the New York Liberty have been asked this weekend is why they cannot come up with a full 40 minutes of great basketball. And I think we're going to start with Sabrina Ionescu, who's going to answer that question that she answered after the press conference against the LA Sparks. And we'll try to find some answers as to why it hasn't been the case so far.
I mean, I think just knowing a little bit about our team, obviously we want to put together 40 minutes of great basketball, but we don't necessarily... we want to do it now, but also we understand that we're still learning and figuring out what works, what doesn't, and we got to make sure that we set the standard of knowing what it takes to put 40 minutes of basketball together by the time that October comes around. And I think now is that kind of like we're playing with, I never played at the end of the game with Steph and some players that have come in, and we're figuring out what works, what a big lineup looks like, how we're switching, integrating JJ back in and figuring all that out. Like there's so many variables, and this is kind of the time where you try and iron those things out and figure out what works. And it's not really a trial and error, but understanding you want to peak at the right time and knowing what it takes to do that. And I have, full trust in our team that by the time we really need to buckle down and put 40 minutes together, we'd have gone through this adversity and understand what it takes to do that.
Yeah, so as Sab said, there's no reason to panic. And our last podcast episode was called The New York Liberty Gonna Be Alright. And, at times, the New York Liberty have been able to play brilliant basketball, incredible basketball, a basketball that makes me think that if they play that Breanna basketball, I don't see who can beat them in the playoff. But unfortunately, there's been some areas of concern, and whether they'll be able to fix it by the time they get to the playoff or not, that is the question. But what do you think are the major areas of concern based on what we've seen, especially this past month?
I think for them right now, it's their first quarter and how they start games. Initially this season, it was the third quarter.
Yeah, but now they've been the best third quarter team in the past 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, and so it's surprising that they've come out sort of, I don't even know if lax is the right word, just maybe not focused, I don't know, but it just seems really odd that they come out and teams can really punch them in the mouth a little bit. These last 2 games sort of showed that. They got the win against Phoenix because they came back in that first quarter. They didn't lose that first quarter by much. But initially, it wasn't looking so great. And then against the LA Sparks, they lost that quarter by 15. So they already dug a hole, and they pretty much played catch up the rest of the game. Now, they played excellent the next 3 quarters. But with a 15-point hole, it's hard. You're constantly having to dig yourself out of it. And so for the Liberty, I think they really have to start games stronger and try to put together, just go quarter by quarter. I think that's the battle for them is you got to string these things together so that you can have a successful 40-minute game and not put yourself in such a hole that you're trying to climb out of it. And also, I think for this weekend, especially for them, being on a back-to-back is hard. It's tough on any team. I know they'll say they have no excuses for why they lost against LA, but again, they did give so much effort against Phoenix. That was it felt kind of like playoff, even though it wasn't a playoff game. It really did feel like a playoff atmosphere because they're so evenly matched this year. And, but Phoenix has never played, the Liberty at full strength. And even at full strength for the Liberty, it was still a juggernaut match on Friday. And yeah, the Liberty got a good win, but I think that also tired them out because the very next day you're coming back to a team that has fresh legs. You're a little tired, you might have a few lapses on defense, things aren't as crisp as, you're used to them being. So yeah, it was a tough game for them to lose, especially at the very end with that miraculous shot by Rickea Jackson.
A prayer. She literally threw a prayer.
But it went in, and it counted. So it's tough. And as you bring in new players, as people get injured and other people have to come in to fill in for some of the starters, I get what Sabrina's saying, that they all have to continue to work together. But you know what? You guys have been together for some time. The only newest addition is, Stephanie Talbot. And so that's going to take her some time to kind of get used to everyone. I don't even think she's been part of a practice yet. So,
no.
She's kind of doing this on the fly. So, we'll see how all that goes for them. But yeah, ultimately the Liberty, to me, sometimes are their own worst enemy. They're a fantastic team. When they truly get down to playing Liberty basketball, I really think no one can beat them. But when they start having lapses, when they're lacking communication, tired legs, all of that combined, it's going to be tough to beat a team with fresh legs.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be hard for them to win the second game on a back-to-back, even though it was at home, so it kind of helped to not have to travel. But the fatigue is definitely there, and there was a stat that I saw on X that was talking about the days of rest in a W and sort of comparing in the last 3 or 4 years what it has been like. And in 2021, each team had on average 4 days of rest between each game versus this year where on average they only have 2.7 days of rest. So the schedule has been insane. They've playing more games this year than last year. They went from 40 games to 44 games, but in the same amount of time. So, and they didn't have the Olympic break that allowed a lot of players that were not part of the Olympics to kind of reset and prepare themselves for the second part of the season. So the schedule has been insane. A lot of injuries, a lot of stars have been injured. The Liberty are already on their 3 games after the All-Star break. So it's definitely not going to help, and we knew that it was going to play a part in this game. I personally felt that the talent would be enough for the Liberty to take care of business, but clearly you could tell that they were fatigued. Now, the thing that kind of worries me is that it almost becomes like too gimmicky in the way that the Liberty turn on the switch in the third quarter after like starting games very slowly, and you know that the crowd is going to get hyped up and help the team to come back. And for a good chunk of the months, they've been able to switch it on and take over games, against Atlanta where they came back and won. Same thing against Phoenix. They almost did it against the Sparks. So, they got into this habit of thinking like, yeah, we just have to turn up the intensity and we'll get the win. But clearly against the Sparks, it wasn't enough. And at some point, as the competition getting stronger and stronger, and you're going to face Minnesota in August 4 times, you're going to have to rectify that, because in the playoff, that could be deadly if you are used to like do the same thing. But the thing that, I think they're definitely going to have to work on is that, rotations on defense, because too many times it felt like they were late in their rotations. Marine said that the pick and roll defense wasn't great against the Sparks, And, the rotations, often missing the second, third, or fourth rotation, which led to opponents getting easy shot out of it. Players also noted that they were often a second too late on defense, allowing opponents to either take a free or get in the paint. And against the Sparks, the first half, it was a bit of bad defense and also incredible shooting from the Sparks. I mean, Kelsey Plum, Rickea Jackson, Van Loo, it was incredible. But I cannot help but think that it was also due to the fact that, miscommunication on defense, helping someone, double teaming someone that, didn't necessarily need to be double teamed, leaving someone wide open in the corner or someone getting into the paint uncontested. I think that's something that they're going to have to, work on in practice, or if they do get to practice, their communication, because otherwise they're going to be in trouble.
Definitely. I think this game, LA really is coming up. I think this win was their 5th straight win.
Yeah.
And so, they're in the hunt. They had a rough start initially, but they're not far out of the playoff picture. And so they're hunting everyone down and trying to get these wins. And so they're hungry and they're going to come out hard against any team they face. Also, I would just also see in LA just their ball movement. That was something in that game that I thought looked really crisp, versus the Liberty. Their ball movement was so on point, and the Liberty was just more lax. You could tell. LA was fresher and New York was not. Also, I think for the Liberty, we've always talked about the void when JJ was out and how much we wanted JJ back, and her presence in the post, and
we see she's been blocking a lot of players.
Yeah, and her presence alone is going to deter a lot of players. Now, the difference is a major void with Stewie not being there. And it's not even about offense, it's about defense. And she is your general. She is the person that is running that on the court, because you miss that from Stewie. Stewie is so quick and versatile that she may be guarding someone and she'll come help you double team, but she can easily get back to the person she was guarding before. And so it's, she doesn't get missteps, on defense too often. And I think that was a huge loss for the Liberty, on Saturday night, because you just saw the void that is there when Stewie is not there to help on defense. They had the offense. They had everyone clicking, in the second half, especially with Natasha and Sabrina going off and everyone really trying their best to get points. But defensively, you saw the void with Stewie missing and Stewie being out. And that was huge for the Liberty. I know she avoided anything major happening there, but I'm sure she's probably going to rest a game or two. We'll see what happens against the Minnesota game coming up this week. But I think even for Stewie, that's just fatigue. I wouldn't be surprised that maybe she shouldn't have played that game.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know, but I'm sure she felt fine. But I think, the night before when we saw her after Phoenix, she looked tired.
She looked definitely tired.
And she looked pretty tired. And, she's not going to make any excuses. She's going to give it a go no matter what. And unfortunately, in that 3rd minute of the first quarter, she knew right away, something's not right. And so obviously we want Stewie back, but her health is the utmost importance. So take all the time you need. We still got a long way to go before the season's over.
Yeah, I mean, so we were really worried about, the gravity of her injury, and we got the news today that she avoided a major injury, and that it's a lower leg injury, but she's going to take, as much time as she needs to recuperate. So she's definitely out for the game against Dallas this Monday. And I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, that she wouldn't be available against Minnesota on Wednesday. There is a temptation to play her because it's our big rival right now and the number 1 team in the league. But if it's a lower leg injury, we don't know. They didn't specify, exactly where the injury was.
I'd rather her get her rest and get strong than force it trying to play Minnesota. Win or lose against Minnesota, we're playing them 4 times. It's okay.
And, I don't want to bring bad luck, but let's just say, for example, it's a calf injury. And we saw in the NBA,
all the calf injuries
that led to Achilles. And, Stewie had Achilles injury in the past. So you really don't want to take that risk for a couple of regular season games that in the end, yeah, maybe if you lose them, it might play a part at the end of the regular season. But I'd rather have Stewie healthy in the playoff than winning a couple of games in the regular season and then losing her for longer. So, but the other thing that also I'm thinking about is how much we take Stewie for granted, because she completely changed the team as soon as she signed for the Liberty. We became, we went from, a team that was just making the playoff to like one of the best teams in the league, a team that went to the final every year that Stewie was part of that team. 2023, we lost against the Aces, and then last year we won the first title in the New York Liberty's history. So I think, sometimes we forget how good she is, but not just offensively, but both ends of the floor. Because defensively, she's a rim protector, a versatility in pressuring the ball, switching, guarding anyone that is missed on defensive end. Like, she does pretty much everything. So, yes, we were happy to have JJ back. She's going to definitely help in the paint or helping when, the defender in the perimeter is getting lost. You have that help on defense in the paint with JJ. But the fact that you had JJ and Stewie, that made it almost impossible for other teams to score that easily. So definitely a big loss for the New York Liberty.
Yeah, it's a huge loss. I mean, even if it's a couple of games, again, with JJ just coming back, it's also going to take time. And JJ is going to get back to her level. It's just right now, I think she had 2 back-to-back games. And so you get tired faster. And so, but I'm sure she'll be back to her level in no time. But yeah, losing Stewie even for a couple of games, my expectation is hoping that they can play well against Dallas. And then, against Minnesota, they still have a great team. That even without Stewie, yes, with Stewie, it's even better. But, I think the Liberty still have a team. It's just a matter of them working out communication on defense and working together and communicating. Because I think that's the one thing I saw in the Sparks game is too many times people are doubling or inadvertently doubling, not realizing they just left someone open because they thought someone else was going to switch onto that player, but not communicating in the moment to do that. And then everyone's sort of looking at each other like, oops, my bad, But with LA, they can shoot the lights out, and that's exactly what they did in this game. It's like you left somebody open, that shot is going up, and high probability they're making it. And so, the Liberty just have to tune this up. It's still August. Well, no, we're still in July, but almost August. And, they have a good month and a half to tweak some things, and I think they can get there. I thought about the Liberty last year as well. Some players did have a break, the Olympics and stuff like that. But I will say that when the Liberty came into playoff, it changed. And you saw a change in the Liberty. You saw how the intensity go up. And so I don't know if that's kind of their system and how they play in terms of they kind of take the games as they come, and then playoff, they go all out.
Yeah, but they had done the work in the regular season that allowed them to be the number 1 seed, which gave them home court advantage for the whole playoff. And we saw how important it was, especially in the finals. So, you still have to kind of play catch up and try to see if you could get that number 1 spot.
I mean, they're not that far.
They're not that far. Minnesota just lost at home today against Atlanta. So thanks to that loss, it helped us to not be too distant.
It's only a few games.
And we're going to face them 4 times in the next month.
This could flip very quickly if the Liberty can lock in and really hold, especially against Minnesota. Both teams have tough schedules coming up. I think both these teams have the tougher schedules than most teams in the league right now. And so facing each other 4 times is going to be a battle. And hopefully the Liberty can come out on top. And if they do, they're going to be closer to that number 1 spot. So
yeah. But as we said before, there's no need to press the panic button because there are things that we should be really happy about. And obviously it's hard to not mention Sabrina Ionescu, who has continued to grow in a playmaking role. If you look at the game against the Phoenix Mercury, she ended up with 29 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, shooting a little over 50% from the field, and a usage rate and shooting efficiency in that last matchup went up tremendously compared to the first 2 games that the Liberty had played against Phoenix in June. I felt that, Phoenix defense also changed a little bit because in those first two matchups, they trapped and put a lot of pressure into Sab. Whereas this one, I felt like, they gave her a little bit more space and she definitely made them pay. She was able to dictate the pace and pick up her spots. And obviously with Jonquel Jones back, it allowed her to shine even more. JJ's elite screening setting creates the space that Sabrina needs to get open and make plays, while Sabrina keeps JJ involved by reading her in the pick and roll. And I think when you have someone like JJ that's such a good roller in the pick and roll, and with her height, she's, has that versatility and ability in the air to kind of like maneuver a shot. That was beautiful to watch during that game. And then against the Sparks, I think that she really carried the team with Natasha Cloud. I think that she scored efficiently inside the arc. I cannot remember the number of mid-range or shots, attacking the paint that she had throughout that game. And I think that I really enjoyed those 2 games from Sab because I was a little bit worried in some of the home games that the Liberty play in July where I felt like Sab was forcing a little too much from the free. And when you look at some of the 3-point percentage in some of those games, it wasn't pretty. Now, she won the 3-point contest, so you're kind of able to forget about some of those games that she had. But I felt like she was trying to play too much like hero basketball. And, we know that she could have those long 3-pointers, but I felt like sometimes she was forcing a little too much. Whereas in those last 2 games, I think she was way more efficient and she just took what the defense gave her. And so efficiency inside the arc, pick and roll with JJ, balanced scoring and playmaking, active on defense as well. She's been a disruptor, getting a lot of steals, deflecting those passes. So a top-notch level by Sabrina Ionescu.
I think the thing we also see with Sab, if you've been watching Sab from the moment she entered the league, she faced her fair share of injury early on, and so she couldn't play to her full potential, her first couple years. And then she got healthy, and then she started to add to her game and really keep adding to her game. And she hasn't been in the league that long, but, you can just see this evolution of Sabrina Ionescu turning into such an elite. I mean, she is an elite player, but she's not done yet. It's like she's still growing. She's still evolving. She hasn't arrived yet. And so, I'm just excited to see how she continues to grow. And I think you're right. At the beginning of the season, maybe she was forcing some shots here or there and, really trying to help the team, but it was a bit too much. And even when they went on their West Coast trip, she had that nagging neck injury and she tried her best, but you could tell she just wasn't herself.
Yeah.
Now she's healthier, and in these last 2 games, even if the 3 ball wasn't going down, just her whole shift of like, all right, I'm going to shift to this. I'm going to shift to the mid range. I'm going to, get JJ in the action. So yeah, I don't always have to try to shoot a 3. If I'm open, I'll try to take it, but I have other options in my bag, and she was using them in those 2 games as she tried to really get those wins for her team. And so I think what we're seeing is that evolution of the elite basketball player in the W, and that's what Sabrina's showing you, is that even with her defense, before you could see teams pick on her for her defense. And now, even when they try to switch on her, you might get by her like 1 time, maybe. But she's going to adjust and she's going to do her best. She does just enough to get you to second guess or miss your shot. Like she's not, she's not Natasha Cloud and all that, but she's learning a lot, and you can tell she's not backing down and she's going to give it all she has. And so I just love the fact that she's also that disruptor on the defensive end, and she's doing what she can to just give a little extra, and it's paying off for her.
Yeah, and just to give you a couple of stats, just to let you know on what level is Sabrina right now. So After scoring her 30th points of the night against the LS Sparks, Sabrina Ionescu has passed Katie Smith and Tina Thompson for 14th on the WNBA all-time list for 30-point games, now with 16 total. It also marks a third 30-point outing of the 2025 season. She also is now the fourth player in WNBA history to record a stat line of at least 30 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals, joining Caitlin Clark, Candace Parker, and Brandy Reed. All four are tied for the most such games in league history with 1 each. And I guess we could add probably Nafisa Collier, who had a similar game today against the Atlanta Dream. But that just like tells you at what level she is right now. The stats are there to back it up in case you're wondering or have doubts about, the level of Sabrina Ionescu. But I'm so glad that she, has moved on from that neck injury and is back to her dominant self. Now, she's the greatest satisfaction right now for the New York Liberty, but there are also other players that I think, are giving satisfaction and make us hopeful for the second part of the season. We've already mentioned them in the previous episode. Leonie Fiebich, who continues to be more and more aggressive, even though Sandy keeps pushing her and keeps telling her to be more aggressive, to take those shots. I think it's slowly but surely coming.
Leo, you are that girl.
You are that girl.
You are that girl. And I know her instinct is to pass. You can tell her instinct.
Yeah.
Unless there's times now where you're starting to see her realize like, oh, I'm going to take it. I'm going to drive or I'm going to shoot it, But you are that girl, Leo. You don't need to pass to everybody. You are that girl and you can drive to the bucket. We believe in you. You got it. You know you can do that. I think she's just so focused on defense.
Yeah.
That is her bread and butter. That's what she loves, and you can see that. But yeah, on offense, it's like we need some double-digit points. We need some double-digit points from Fiebich just to help out because, you never know which player may not have a great game, whether that's Stewie or Sab or JJ. If they don't have, their best game, we need somebody else to step up. And so I know Sandy's still pushing that and the players are still pushing that for her. I'm sure it's coming. It's coming slowly. I feel like certain games she's going off like she was the player of the game some nights ago. So we just needed to be a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's right now the most efficient shooter in the league.
Yeah.
But in the last game against the Sparks, she missed the 2 3-pointers that she had and pretty much scored most of her points in the paint. So we do see some changes in her game and she's more aggressive. So hopefully she's going to continue heading into that direction. The other player that we've mentioned before in the previous podcast episode is Marine Johannès. We see that she's continuing to be a very good defender this year. I think that if you had told me that Marine would be a great defender this season, I'm not sure I would have believed you because we've known her for her magic on offense, but she wasn't considered as a great defender, and she's putting the work. And you see that it's very rare that the offensive player is, passing her. So kudos to Marine for that. I just wish that she could have the ball on her hand a bit more rather than being in the corner. But because you see, like against Julie Alamon, she had the ball in her hand and she just cooked her like Allen Iverson. It was incredible. She just created her own shot just by crossing her. There's very few people that could do that. Yeah. So I wish and I hope that she could do a bit more of that rather than just staying in the corner. But I saw when I was looking back at some of the games that even when she's in the corner, she does impact the game because there was one play against Phoenix where Sabrina attacked the basket and Alyssa Thomas was defending on Marine Johannès. And Marine, just by staying in the corner, Alyssa Thomas had to respect her and couldn't fully help on Sabrina getting into the paint.
Yeah.
So because of that kind of helped Sabrina to have the space to attack the rim and get the basket. So yes, it does work, but I just wish that Marine would get the ball in her hand a bit more when she's in that second rotation.
And she's probably going to get it, you know, when they play Dallas even more so. I think she has been such a delight. I think just seeing her be more aggressive on offense and defense. And, you know, her plus minus has been, you know, I think one of the highest on the team as of late.
Yeah.
And so even if she's not putting up a whole lot of shots, you got to respect her, and you got to respect the fact that you can't leave her open, because she will punish you. And also just seeing her drive and trying to, you know, drive and kick and be more aggressive. You can see that she is coming up, and she's coming up in her defense as well. She's not allowing players to get by her that easily. I think there were times where if you beat her, like, you know, she might try to steal the ball, or she may foul you or whatever, but now she's really staying in front of players and really trying her best. And so I'm really proud of Marine, just to see how she's just evolving in this season, and she's just getting better and better.
Yeah, and the last player that I wanted to mention that also offers a lot of hope for the second part of the season, it's Natasha Cloud, and a leadership role. I think that she has really taken on that leadership role at heart, and I think that game against the Sparks, that second half particularly, she went into the zone. Like, I felt like even you could tell in her face, like, nothing could go wrong with her, because like she was doing everything. I mean, she was playing at 200%, you know, upping up the tempo in transition, having those baskets, attacking the rim, shooting those threes like, you know, like no other. You know, they keep questioning whether she's a shooter or not, but I feel like not necessarily corner threes, even though she had that great corner three with that no-look pass from Marine. I feel like when she's like, you know, in front of the rim, that's where she's at the best, or in those sort of like
halfway between the corner and top of the key.
Yeah, I think she's been pretty efficient. So great game by Natasha Cloud. I think she really gave everything she had, and you could tell like she was livid at the end of the game, and during the press conference you felt like she gave everything she had, and you could tell like the frustration of not putting up that win for the Liberty. I feel like when you have a player like that, she really gives everything to the organization that she's playing for, and I think you really appreciate to have someone like her.
Yeah, really do. I mean, she pours into this team, and she pours into the players
and the fans as well.
And the fans, and she gives it 1,000%. And I just hope that, you know, whether the players or the organization, that they're pouring back into her, because she is definitely a giver. Like, she loves to, you can see just how much she pours into the people around her. And, you know, I just hope she's also getting poured into, because she's going to need that come the stretch. You know, these games, like losing by 2 points and losing on like basically a circus shot, and then, you know, like you feel gutted. You feel like you put in all, and she put in a lot of effort coming down the stretch in that fourth quarter. I mean, she was on a one-woman show. You know, whether it was going to the bucket, going to the rim, or shooting threes, or defending, she was doing it all on both ends of the court. And so, you know, you can feel gutted when you feel like you've put in such an effort. You get there, you tie it up, and maybe you go to overtime. But yeah, it's unfortunate that that's how, you know, the game ended. But yeah, I think for her, she's going to bounce back from that like any professional athlete, and she's going to come back even stronger in the Dallas game. And I know she's going to be there in Minnesota ready to fight for that one as well. So yeah, Cloud has been amazing, and I think she's a perfect fit for the Liberty. She is that fit for the Liberty who can be one of the leaders and one of the very vocal leaders on the team and really get the team going. So I'm really glad that she's here.
Yeah, so the New York Liberty gonna be all right. Don't press the panic button just yet.
No.
They're gonna be fine, and you know, we were really happy that we heard the news that Stewart didn't have a serious injury. But you know, that schedule, we don't really have much time to ponder on the last loss, because the schedule is insane.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the schedule right now for this upcoming week. Monday, July 28th. We're recording this episode on Sunday, July 27th. They're playing this Monday at Dallas at 8 p.m. 2 days later, they're playing the matchup, the remake of the WNBA Finals of last year. They're playing in Minnesota on Wednesday, July 30th. Then they're going to Connecticut on Friday, August 1st. And they're basically going to have 2 games against Connecticut, one on Friday and one on Sunday, August 3rd. So 5 games, 5 away games this coming week. That's a lot. I feel like Dallas and Connecticut are 2 teams that you should take care of business, but you don't want to be complacent. And Paige Bakers will be back for that game. She rested for the Sunday game, so Dallas would be on a back-to-back. And then Connecticut, they just blew up the Valkyries today. So even though they only 4 wins and 20 losses, you should take care of business against Connecticut. But the big game, obviously, that everybody's thinking of is the Wednesday game against Minnesota. The first time that those 2 teams are facing each other since the finals. So I'm sure that Minnesota will have a heart to take care of business after the way they lost last year.
Whether they are home or away, I think one of the things that you gotta look at is starting tomorrow up until next Tuesday, give it about 8 days, you're going to have 5 games. And that is an insane schedule. You pretty much have a game every other day. And so you don't get a whole lot of time to rest. You pretty much, or you have a game. And, I mean, really the only time they kind of get to relax a little bit is because they're going to be in Connecticut for the weekend, basically. So they don't have to, necessarily hop a flight. And then coming back to New York, they're not that far away. So, but still, 5 games, 8 days, that's a lot. And you're going to see, I think, through the league, not just with the Liberty and what happened with Stewie, but, throughout the league with games now are going to come down the pike where all these teams, you may see more injuries. If people aren't getting the rest that they need so they can get treatment and get ready. And, even if you put one other day in between, that would be helpful. But, I think that's something that they're definitely going to have to talk about in terms of with the CBA. And that's a whole other topic, but they definitely need to do that just for the sake of the players all around, not just the Liberty, but just in the whole W.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say more money for the players, more players in the rosters, making it a 15 player roster, and then just stretch a little bit more of the schedule. Maybe start a little later to give time to the rookies, for people finishing their seasons in Europe. Or maybe if you give them the money that they deserve, they won't have to play in Europe and just focus on the WNBA season. So less risk for injuries, and then stretch it to maybe November. I know this is the NBA season and other sports, but who cares? If you want this league to grow and you want to root for them, it doesn't matter. The WNBA Finals last year did really well, even though the NBA season had already started. So I don't think that's a problem. But yeah, if you want to have a great product, pay the players, and you have to put them in the best position to succeed. And that means more players in the roster and more time to recuperate between each games. But I'm sure the players and their union are doing everything they can to get what they deserve. And I hope that the outcome will be positive. But just to finish and looking at the schedule, personally, if I was Sandy, I would not play Stewie at all this week, even though they have a game against Minnesota, because there's really no point. I feel like personally the Liberty can take care of business of Dallas and Connecticut without her. And then Minnesota, I think we could still win without Stewie, but if we lose, it would be shocking. But I do feel like they have what it takes to take care of business, even without Stewie. So she's going to be part of the road trip. They said that she will be flying with the rest of the team, but personally, I wouldn't play her. But that will be for another day. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to us and for your support. We'll try our best to drop an episode after the Dallas game or after the Minnesota game. We'll let you know. But thank you so much, guys. And as we always say, Felicia, let's go Liberty!